we are going to look at scientific investigations. Example is photosynthesis, how it is connected to sustainability, and then finally the ethics. So all the topics are not going to be covered in this video, but certain topics I have covered already. And therefore, I'm going to go through the subtopics to highlight the link between those. Initially, the hypothesis, why we have to form a hypothesis in a scientific investigation. So it is a testable prediction. Is it going to happen or is it not going to happen? Using if and then principle, right? If whatever happens to the dependent variable, how is it affecting the independent variable, right? And then need to know what are the control variables as well. Finally, you are executing the investigation as planned. And first two sections I've already done. The third one is gathering data and analyzing data, which you have to do. I'll give you some guideline. So this is plotting graphs. Those are for you to do. Then you've got to understand the importance of justifying fairness and reliability of any experiment. These are for you to think, right? Then the next one is application of the concept, that is the photosynthesis concept, to gain economic sustainability. But at this stage, we are looking at photosynthesis by focusing on the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The carbon connection is important here. And that's why we are digging into this photosynthesis topic. Finally, it is how we align economic sustainability with ecological or environmental ethics. Don't get scared of these words. In simple English, it is a lot of carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere due to a number of reasons. These are all the human impact, right? Deforestation, fossil fuel burning, then damming rivers, right? Then excessive use of fertilizers, a number of things, water polluting, carbon dioxide, water is in hand affected. So as a result, right, the temperature in the atmosphere increasing, so that is causing global warming, right? Ice melting, flooding, so a number of economical imbalances there, right? So that is why we are touching this photosynthesis topic. To understand, we know that carbon dioxide is taken by green plants. So in that case, can we take all excessive carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to resolve the issue, right? That's where the hunch is, right? Next, the variables in an experiment. Please snip this screen and take it. This was already done. So the three variables were clearly identified. Then photosynthesis equation is writing here because the focus is how to get rid of excessive carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Yeah, we know that it combines with water when sunlight is there to produce starch in green plants, right? But at the same time, oxygen is eliminated. Now, photosynthesis equation, I have written that in words and then as in symbols, right? Finally, a summary in italicized form, right? That's just to get an idea, right? So our hunch is, as I said, it's the carbon dioxide. Excessive carbon dioxide has become a huge problem. Next slide. What we are going to do is, I'm going to carry out this experiment using Elodia, a water plant, and how we are going to measure rate of photosynthesis. Remember, I said oxygen is released during photosynthesis. So what we are going to do is, we are going to find out how we are going to change the light intensity by moving the lamp towards the direction of the test tube, and then counting number of oxygen bubbles eliminating, right? So then that would give us an indication of rate of photosynthesis. Okay. we will see how that's going to happen. This is a very interesting experiment. So the reason to select this plant is there is a little branch, cut it and put it upside down. The stem is up. So the cut surface, we are going to, expose to water. So we are going to change the light. You can see the light source in a vertical line in the middle, kind of a little bulb. Right now, the distance is 150 centimeters away from the plant. What we are going to do is we are going to keep this, we are going to reduce the distance, right? By taking the, this measurement from the ruler. And then we are going to count number of oxygen bubbles released within a given time period. Time period you need to set, right? So you are changing the light intensity. Light intensity meaning how strong the light is. When you get this bulb closer to the plant will have strong sunlight. Light is representing the sunlight, right? If it is away from the plant, meaning the light intensity is low, right? I hope you got this concept clearly. But even though you didn't get it, when you do the experiment, you will realize that. So let's get into that virtual experiment. So here I'm going to increase, the distance is going to be reduced, right? What I'm going to do is I'll get it into 100 millimeters. 100 millimeters meaning 10 centimeters. Then I'm going to start this thing. When I start, I'm going to set it for 15 seconds. I don't want too much, right? I'll be counting number of oxygen bubbles, right? Have a look. Right, I can't count even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So fast. You need to count somehow, right? It may be 40, 50, even more than that. So when it reaches 15 seconds, I'm going to stop it, right? Back. And you saw that it was really fast. Now let me get into 120, right? 20 millimeters added, right? So distance is increasing now. Again, I'm going to start it. Remember, 15 seconds. You need to count. Start. Not that bad. Pretty fast, but not faster like earlier. You need to count those. Right, back. I hope you did count, right? Counting is your part. You have to replay the video and do the counting. Now I'm going to get into 140. That means 14 centimeters away, right? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can count that. That is slower now. You could see that. Yeah, that's pretty slow. Right. Now I'm going to get into 150, the 160. That means 16 centimeters away, right? You can, the distance you can decide. You were given the link, you need to carry out, right? Yeah, I'm going to start. I counted 12. Don't know what you counted. It got 12, right? Let me get it a little bit further. 190, right? That is 19 centimeters away. Let's count what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I don't think more than 11. Now you must have found when I get the lamp closer to the plant, the amount of, number of oxygen bubbles released was more compared to the lamp away from the plant. That means when the distance increases, the number of oxygen bubbles eliminating from the plant reduces. At the end of this, at the end of the experiment, These are the activities you need to do. First thing is the write-up. Under is light necessary for photosynthesis? So these slides you need to follow in order and answer the questions, right? It was sent to you by email. So read the questions and answer that. Then carbon dioxide absorption by leaves, we need to dig a little deeper to understand how can Elodia fix carbon dioxide during photosynthesis, right? If you look at the first one, if you look at this, just magnified view of a portion of a little leaf, right? And you can see kind of little eye-like cells we call stomata, and they have tiny little openings, right? So when they open this little stomata, that's where you could see that carbon dioxide enters in. Very interesting. When carbon dioxide enters in, at the same time, the oxygen can escape, water molecules can also escape, right? So when water escapes, we call it transpiration. Oxygen is released because photosynthetic reaction is producing oxygen as a byproduct, right? That's the enlargement view. And so imagine you are traveling deep inside the leaf to see how active chlorophyll molecules are when they convert solar energy into chemical energy, right? Why? To make glucose. So if you look at that, this red arrow, and that's the 3D view of a chloroplast, right? The chloroplast is the organelle in green leaves where chlorophylls are present. So when you look at these little stacks-like structures, right, I'm going to get one out and show you how it is. There it is. Can you see the second one, chloroplast, cut surface, and we are having stack of plates. And on those stack of plates, you will find this massive molecule called chlorophyll, which has the ability to absorb sunlight and convert that into chemical energy, in brief, right? Now we have a great question here. Considering photosynthetic efficiency, or another term, power of algae in fixing carbon dioxide, how could we have sustainable economic benefit, right? That's where we are looking at. So under that theme, we have to look at two areas. One is, how can we manufacture bioproducts? And the second one is protecting environment, right? We'll get one by one. Now here in this diagram, I'm highlighting the bioproducts from photosynthetic algae. Remember, it is photosynthetic algae. For the reason there are other algae, not every algae is, all species of algae are going through photosynthesis. Some of them are brown, some of them are red, some of them are yellow-brown, right? So that there are different colors. But these are byproducts from photosynthetic algae, right? And if you look at that, the first one, biofuels, those are biogas, biodiesel, bioethanol, biocrude, and biogasoline. They all are in a little, can you see that this is called furnace. So in this chamber, different areas are going through different temperatures, right? And that's how you will get the gas on top, then the diesel, then the ethanol, crude, and then biogasoline, right? Just remember that. Now the second one is pharmaceutical or vitamin production. Then this is protein-rich food, right? That is also coming from algae. Then the next one is animal feed, also fertilizers and feedstock. Bioplastics are manufactured and cosmetics, right? So then you will have a broader idea of what algae could do. The whole thing is based on carbon dioxide fixation, we call it, right? It is photosynthesis, but in this case, it is taking excess carbon dioxide out of atmosphere, dissolved in water, getting into the cells, and then producing this oil, different oil types, right? Very, very healthy process. Next, now we are going to look at environmental pollution factors due to carbon dioxide and water together. right? A number of problems we have. Now, the very first one is air pollution, or greenhouse gases, adding greenhouse gases. Then another one is air pollution. Another one is coming from human activity where people burn fossil fuels. So that's also getting back to air pollution, right? Number two, let's look at what's the next step here. Air pollution, with water and carbon dioxide in atmosphere, they form, thick clouds, right? And the clouds are falling down. We call it precipitation, right? So the second environmental problem is acid rain. So as a result, what happens? Acid rains falling down, we call it precipitation. And it is that is getting into, it could be soil, it could be water, right? Now, let's see what's the next environmental problem. Here we are, excessive fertilizer from farming. So they are washed away from the farmland to the water streams, right? So because of excessive fertilizer, what's the next thing you could expect, right? In large proportions, algae would grow, okay? So when large proportions of algae grows in water because of the excess fertilizer on one side, the other side acid rain, right? So then what happens is the water will become polluted. We call it water pollution. Now, one thing I did not say, that excessive fertilizer from farming, washing away that function, we call it eutrophication. Remember that, right? Right, let's look at the algal growth, number 4, a portion from here, okay? Right, now that arrow is reverse side is showing increased algae growth. Look at the algae, covered the whole water, and look at the thickness, right? All right, and the next one is, it is an environmental problem, of course. Now what we are going to do is, we have so much algae growth, so therefore it is the time we need to look at how to manufacture biofuel, right? Now, if you look at that, we have two fuels. One is fossil fuels and the other one is biofuels. Now, these two need to be neutralized. Okay, so that's the next arrow. You can see that double-headed arrow. So it's highlighting these two sides, right? How you balance that. Burning fossil fuels, and the other side is biofuels, right? Let's get into the next one. Now, biofuels, we need...
Biofuels. Biofuels are combustible fuels created from biomass. The term biofuel is usually used to describe liquid fuels such as ethanol and biodiesel that are used as replacements for transportation fuels like gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Ethanol is an alcohol formed by fermentation. It is used as a replacement for or additive to gasoline. Biodiesel is an oil produced by extracting naturally occurring oils from plants and seeds. Biodiesel can be combusted in diesel engines or blended with diesel fuel. Biofuels are grouped in 3 categories based on the type of feedstock used to produce them. First-generation biofuels are produced from food crops. For ethanol, feedstocks include sugarcane, corn, maize, and others. For biodiesel, feedstocks are naturally occurring vegetable oils such as soybean and canola. Second-generation biofuels are produced from cellulosic material such as wood, grasses, and inedible parts of plants. This material is more difficult to break down through fermentation and therefore requires pre-treatment before it can be processed. Third-generation biofuels are produced using the lipid production from algae. In addition, the term advanced biofuels is used to describe the relatively new technological field of biofuel production that uses waste such as garbage, animal fats, and spent cooking oil to produce liquid fuels. Biofuels are currently the only viable replacement to petroleum transportation fuels because they can be used in existing combustion engines. This is an increasingly important advantage with growing concern about the environmental impacts of fossil fuels around the globe. Biofuels can also help provide energy security in regions that do not have hydrocarbon resources but do have suitable agricultural conditions. While there is some dispute over just how renewable biofuels are, it is generally accepted that the crops used to produce them can be replenished much faster than fossil fuels, which take millions of years to form. Concerns about biofuels are usually centered around the fact that they are an agricultural product. Producing these biofuel crops can mean competition with other natural resources, particularly land, food, and water. First-generation biofuels use only edible crops, which has led to biofuel crops displacing food sources in certain regions and subsequent spikes in food prices. In many regions of the world, subsidies are provided for these crops, which only amplifies these issues. In addition, increased agriculture of any form comes with concerns of deforestation and biodiversity loss, as well as water and fertilizer use, which have environmental and climate impacts all to their own. That's biofuels.
Right. Let's look at the differences between fossil fuels and biofuels. To begin with, biofuels, right? Produced from living matter, you know that everything is plant material, algae. But fossil fuels, they are produced from the geological processes deep underneath the lithosphere. Then the next one is for biofuels, you can get from renewing sources, but not fossil fuels, right? Because they are always from non-renewable energy sources. Now, biofuels provide low amount of energy by unit biomass, although fossil fuels provides a high amount of energy by unit biomass. Another difference is biofuels causes less pollution than fossil fuels, right? Because fossil fuels are considered as a main environmental polluter. The next difference is biofuels emits a low amount of unfavorable greenhouse gases when burned. The fossil fuels, they emit very high amount of unfavorable greenhouse gases. So the difference is biofuels, the greenhouse gases are low, while fossil fuels produce high amount. The next difference is biofuels can be produced from safer methods, algae. However, fossil fuels, they are obtained from unsafe methods such as drilling and mining. Biofuels are a little expensive, maybe fossil fuels are a little cheaper, right? So that's the major difference. The next one, we are looking at the environmental problems, but we are going to find a connection between these two, the biofuels and fossil fuels, right? So we'll see how to deal with these two, right? One side is not healthy use, the use is not healthy, meaning it pollutes atmosphere, unlike the other side. Now, what we need to look at is these two things, right? How to find the balance between these two, the fossil fuels and the biofuels. We need to find a solution, right? So what would be the best approach, you think? Right? We need a solution, but we need the best approach, right? And here, there are two methods suggested. One is ecocentrism, which means ecological political philosophy, right? And that is giving priority for nature-centered value. That means nature, whatever balancing nature is valued over human activity, right? That's one approach. The second approach, we call it anthropocentrism. So in the case of anthropocentrism, this is a worldview. In this case, it's always human priority is taking precedence over ecocentrism, right? It's believing that humans are always right, okay? So it's up to you now. You need to make a decision, because being, in 2-3 years time, when you take responsibility as a grown-up adult, you have to take a side, right? You need to justify whatever your choice is. Now, To find this solution, this is the same, that portion I have enlarged, right? You need to understand what's the best approach is, right? It's the same specific area. This slide is just a bit of an enlargement, right? Now, solutions to reach sustainability. I want you to decide this, right, based on the realities. Now, this diagram is showing, look at the ecocentric. Ecocentric view is looking at the whole planet. Okay, that's one view. Then the other one, what we talked was anthropocentric. That is based on mankind, right? In between these two, there are two more views. That is biocentric. It's focusing on all living beings. Then the other one is egocentric, is just based on one individual, right? But our focus is not egocentric, not biocentric. We want to find out where the two sides. Those two sides are the ecocentric view and anthropocentric view, right? Right. So which one would you select? You need to make a choice. Is it ecocentrism or anthropocentrism, right? You need to justify your choice, right? So now it is your responsibility, not mine. So we are back to biofuels versus fossil fuels, right? We saw this one, okay? Right, now the next stage is, can we power the world with algae, right? And that is the next concern, right? Let's have a look how it goes.
You know when you're minding your own business, swimming in a lake or ocean, and suddenly that green blob touches you and you're not down? That stuff could power your house, your car, and it could even stop global warming. Hey there, muckrakers. Thanks for watching D-News. I'm Trace. Algae is plural. It encompasses a large number of stemless, rootless, leafless, usually monocellular plants that get energy from photosynthesis. Algae exist in many colors: red, yellow, purple, brown, black, and of course green and blue-green. All of these absorb light and turn it into energy. Algae are a basic food source for both salt and freshwater animals and birds. Their decomposition releases minerals into the water, and their mass provides a refuge for small fish and invertebrates. If nature loves it so much, why don't humans?
It's a completely renewable source, and it's made from sunlight and carbon dioxide and water, and so it's a very sustainable, renewable fuel.
That's Dave Hazelbeck, founder of Global Algae Innovations. He thinks these tiny plants can be way more valuable than they are already. Steve Woods is a mechanical engineer, and he works with Dave turning algae into fuel for cars, trucks, and airplanes.
The ones that we deal with are micro algae, so it's a little single cell, and you could start with just a single cell and grow it all the way out and just have them multiply and everything. Just growing plants, you just feed them what they need, and carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and stuff, and they just grow and they multiply like crazy.
For some D-News episodes, that's a bad thing. But for this, you want it to multiply. Eventually, it'll fill up these pools they call raceways, and Steve will pull them out, drain the water, and dry it all out. That's actually really hard, by the way. The dry algae can be turned into food for animals or people.
And when you do feed them certain things or stress them in certain ways, they can produce oils and different things that are beneficial for like nutraceuticals or pharmaceutical stuff and everything, so it's kind of cool.
There are over 100,000 different types of algae, and they store energy in the form of oil.
And the oil can be easily converted into drop-in fuels, which means it can be converted into gasoline, diesel, and jet that can be used directly in current engines. You don't need any special modifications or anything to run an algae biofuel. The fuel that we're producing is exactly the same in terms of performance as gasoline or diesel or jet. Renewable diesel actually performs better than petroleum-based diesels.
Biofuels like these are energy sources that come from living matter. They stand apart from fossil fuels, which, by the way, also come from living matter, because biofuels are made now, not over millions of years. You've probably heard of ethanol, a fuel made from corn. It's easy to make with the industry we already have, but it's not the best biofuel.
It takes a lot of time to grow a whole field of corn, but to grow out a lot of algae is a lot faster, and it's just a plant.
On top of that, the U.S. Department of Energy believes algae could be 10 or 100 times more productive than other bioenergies. Biofuels aren't new. Henry Ford's Model T was designed to run on ethanol, but ethanol only packs about half the punch of gasoline. As people recognize the issues with global warming and climate change, biofuel technology has only gotten better. Fossil fuels release carbon that was trapped inside of our planet for millions of years, but because biofuels are plants,
You're capturing the carbon dioxide, and so it's not being released, and that's part of it. You can grow algae, 40 times more algae per acre than you can with terrestrial crops. And as a result, you don't have all the deforestation.
on top of that, these biofuel farmers only need the oil. The algae can be used for industrial applications in food and in drugs. The algae even contains omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids that are required for healthy humans. But
So when we look at this topic about powering world with algae, we need to compare different plants and their production, ethanol and biodiesel. So the gray cylinders, the bars are for ethanol, the alcohol production. The green ones are for biodiesel. When you look at the biodiesel side, the microalgae, when microalgae produce 5,020 gallons per acre, the second highest is simply oil palm in Malaysia that produces 506. So it is 1/10, almost 1/10. The others are kind of cannot considered as well because the figures are really small, right? So this proves a comparison between all photosynthetic plant types. The algae is in the lead when producing biodiesel, right? So that proves that algae in biodiesel production and biodiesel production is the most efficient. So the next one, we need to look at ethics for nature ethics, right? That means ecological or environmental ethics. What's right? What decisions would help us to sustain the environment? Okay, and that's called environmental or ecological ethics. So it's about the correct way of human acting in relation to nature. Now, what I want you to do is take into sustainability aspects, what are the advantages and disadvantages of biofuels and fossil fuels, right? So I want you to look at this from an ethical viewpoint. Then which side do you take, right? Are biofuels worse than fossil fuels or vice versa? So when you become a responsible adult, would you favor ecocentrism or anthropocentrism? I want you to justify your choice. Take this seriously, right? Now this is algae. Algae is in the production of large quantities of oil. Sunlight is there to say that it is fixing carbon dioxide from atmosphere with the presence of sunlight, okay, and taking carbon dioxide and water as well, but it releases oxygen, right? It is the basic phenomenon. I'm coming to conclude that. Now, this diagram is biological carbon dioxide fixation. So you can see that little algae here, the renewable energy source, right? So the renewable energy source can produce power, right? That power station is generating electricity, right? So then whatever the carbon dioxide will be released to the atmosphere again, right? So algae can be also used to extract oil. You saw that in the video, right? How they get oil, because a lot of algae stores food in the form of lipid, right? So from oil, it is possible to produce protein, protein remnants or residues, right? Also from oil, it is the biodiesel is produced. With biodiesel production, again, you get two types, this glycerin products and renewable fuel, right? So that being said, this diagram is going to show you The eutrophication meaning, remember, the excessive fertilizer is washed away from farming and that entered to water stream. Because of high amount of fertilizer, the algae can grow well, and it is, algae is uncontrollable, right? The water can be, polluted, right? If algae is not used to get energy, or in otherwise the biodiesel production, right? The water will be polluted, and that's danger, right? Now, in the world, if you look at this pie chart, you will see biofuel use is really less, 2.5%, and it is mainly fossil fuels. Okay, so that this is why we are experiencing issues with climate change. Now, let's look at this one. This is the cycle. We call it the carbon fixation by algae, solar energy, and we get it. Look at the cyclic manner, right? Algae can be used with what? Carbon dioxide, algae or carbon life cycle with biofuels. What happens is oil is produced, the same thing, different diagram, biodiesel, and then the combustion, meaning they are used in vehicles. With oxygen, again, carbon dioxide is released, right? So you can see the dynamics. So it all starts from solar energy, algae photosynthesizing to produce starch, the glucose, right? So that diagram is clear, I guess. Now the next one is, we are going to watch the dynamics of capturing excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by using algae. Little detail.
More than 90% of Kentucky's power comes from coal. With federally mandated CO2 limits on the horizon, work underway at the University of Kentucky Center for Applied Energy Research is more critical than ever. CAER is developing green technology to capture CO2 emissions from coal-fired power plants.
The industry will adapt technology which right now doesn't exist. So that's our challenge. Realistically, what type of technologies can we be working on in order to help the industry have something to adapt in the future?
One of CAER's technologies uses chemical solvents to capture the CO2 from emissions. Another technology isolates CO2 by combusting the fuel with only oxygen.
Once we've captured CO2, we have to do something with it. Right now, the only feasible option is to pump it underground into geologic formations, of which we in Kentucky do have some. But if you look at other major coal areas, they don't have geologic formations. It's not an option for them.
4 years ago, CAER and UK's Biosystems and Ag Engineering Department set out to prove that an algae-based system could recycle the CO2 in flue gas. With $1.8 million in funding from the Kentucky Energy and Environment Cabinet, CAER is now partnering with Duke Energy to test a pilot-scale algae system at East Bend Station.
The nice thing about the algae is that it does actually capture and sequester the CO2.
The heart of our process is the photobioreactor, and it's a fancy word for a place to grow algae. And if you look at the words and break it down, you got bioreactor, which means you're using a living organism to do a job for you. You got photo, meaning light. We're harnessing algae's ability to grow very fast and perform photosynthesis in order to take the carbon dioxide in flue gas and turn it into biomass.
Instead of acres of ponds, CAER's strategy is based on a closed system of photobioreactors to grow algae.
We have the ability to eliminate evaporation because we have an enclosed system. We have a way to minimize contamination because we don't have ducks landing in our tubes. But having a closed system, I think it actually offers a number of advantages, particularly from a weather point of view. Even in the cold of winter, even in the limited sunshine that we had, the algae did grow. The algae that we're using is a native species. It's here for a reason. It likes this environment. The challenge for us has been to develop a photobioreactor that would be expandable and that would scale up in a cost-effective manner. So the target price was $1 per liter of photosynthetic volume, and that's where we are.
CAER system, made of plastic mailing tubes and off-the-shelf PVC pipes, is built by UK students and glued together on site. Expanding the system simply means adding more tubes.
I think they might be too close together at this point. where these are getting shaded by the rest. So looking at tube spacing and making the most efficient use of capital will be another major effort as we move forward.
We're located on the east side of the power plant with southern exposure to maximize the sunlight. We have installed a 5,000-gallon feed tank with 2 centrifugal pumps.
And that main tank serves as the hub. That's where we add our CO2, that's where we add our nutrients, and that's where we return our water.
Algae comes out of the photobioreactors and it goes into the harvest tank. In a few hours, thanks to flocculation that helps the algae stick together, it settles to the bottom of the tank.
It's very dark green, the consistency of pesto. That material is what we would feed to an anaerobic digester.
The anaerobic digester can turn the algae into methane that the power plant could burn for fuel. Or, using gravity filtration, wet lipid extraction, and upgrading, you can make renewable diesel and jet fuel. Or by removing more moisture with a solar dryer and dry lipid extraction, you can make jet fuel or produce fish food and animal feed.
You have to do work in the realm of feasible economics. From a biofuels processing point of view, it makes sense. It is not extremely profitable, but when you look at what's happened, you've actually captured CO2 from a dilute stream and turned it into a value-added product.
So we will look at the types of biofuels. This, at the beginning of the video, we highlighted that the first generation, second and third generation, right? Dividing into 3 areas for reasons, right? The first generation is mainly based on the sucrose starch, material. But the second one is the storage product becomes cellulose, right? It's all based on cellulose. Cellulose is more of a fibrous, unlike starch where they are little round molecules, right? Then the third generation is completely algal biomass, right? So it's just to give, going through final remarks, concluding remarks. Now the first generation ones from these plants, the wheat, corn, barley, sugarcane, sweet wheat kind of. So what is produced is liquid biofuel, right? That's example ethanol. But the second generation from those, the cellulose plant material, it is biodiesel is produced from oily plants, right? But the third generation is mostly the most successful one, which is from algae, and it is biodiesel or petroleum is the focus, right? So the next slide is how you get biofuels from algae. This is just the step, the processes. You can have a look, but you don't need to remember all these things. This is just to get an idea, right? Algae culture is there. So from the culture, it is harvesting, right? For the algae culture to grow, water and nutrients need to be added, right? When it is harvested, oil need to be extracted, right? So then that oil, extracted oil, some are going through algae oil, that is a cleaning process. The other side is considered as biomass. Biomass is used for fermentation finally to produce ethanol. So you can see that from algae oil how biodiesel is taken to get an idea of how these are connected. Then we are looking at the same previous diagram, but it is more of a diagrammatic form, right? So, and you can see that the process, right? Recycling nature of nutrients and water, you could have a look, right? How each and every stage is geared towards the number of different byproducts, right? And that diagram is also self-explanatory for the reason that it is worth 1,000 words. Now, I want you to watch this video 3 times minimum if you want to grasp all the basic concepts and prepare yourself for the examination. Good luck, everyone.